and I love games. I grew up playing all sorts of games with my family. Dominoes, Taboo, Uno, you name it. It wasn't uncommon to stop by my grandmother's house on any given day just to play a game of Scrabble with her. She's absolutely amazing at it. It seems that testers also like games as well. One of my favorite things about going to testing conferences is the late night game sessions with my fellow testers. I get to know them better and just hang out with them in a nice, relaxing, fun environment. And there I am. Let's see if I can get me. Yeah, that's me. There I am at 2 a.m. kicking butt in the Great Del Muti card game. I love games so much so that when pursuing my master's degree in computer science, I elected to take a game design course. And as a player, it was really interesting to learn the mechanics behind designing a game. For our final project, we had to design an urban game, and the game that I designed was called City Bingo. And I'm actually going to show you my final project right now via video. Now, I know that I look young, but this is years ago, okay? So forgive the quality, but you get to see young Angie, so hopefully that'll make up for it just a little bit. Round 125 of City Bingo has just begun. The round will continue until a player wins bingo. If no one wins bingo by December 13th, the round will end and a new round will begin. Click here to retrieve your bingo card. Good luck. Cool, let me print this out.
started running around taking pictures. What are you doing?
Well, I'm playing this game, City Bingo, and you have to find pictures of these text descriptions. So the description I have is lifesaver, and it's my last clue, and I'm gonna get bingo if I can find it. But I can't find something to represent lifesaver.
Well, why don't you just get a pack of lifesavers?
Nah, that's too obvious. The more creative I am, the more points I get. Oh gosh. I'm running out of time. I want to have this done today. Oh my God, is that one of those little life raft thingies? Yeah, baby.
Listen up with your game.
Oh man.
Stylus.
Email from City Bingo. Congratulations, your bingo submission has been validated by City Bingo judges, and you have been declared the winner of City Bingo round 125. 100 bingo points have been added to your score. Number one, baby! Woo! You, I love games. Now, while taking this game design course, I continued to play games, mostly online. And one of the games that I would play would be these little dress-up games. And it's dead simple. It's pretty much what you see here. You put the clothes on the doll, and that's it. Game over. This really spoke to the fashionista in me, but not so much the gamer. So, with my newfound game design skills, I decided to create my own game in this genre. Meet Diva Chicks. So Diva Chicks is a game that I designed and developed years ago. It actually still stands today as a web app with hundreds of thousands of players from all over the world that play this game. And the object of the game is to become the #1 ranked doll, okay? And you do that by competing. So it's a strategic and competitive game where you dress up your doll, but then you challenge other players. And people vote to determine which one is the better dressed. These are called fashion battles. After the 60-minute fashion battle, whoever has the highest score wins, and points are added to their overall score, right? So when developing Diva Chicks, this was also during the first time that I took a test automation job. Ooh. So I began to look at test automation from the mindset of a game designer. And I started to see some similarities there. We're constantly faced with obstacles and challenges that we overcome. Sometimes we win, sometimes we lose. Some of it is up to chance, some of it is up to skill. And I realized that when I started looking at the test automation in this gamer mindset, things became a lot clearer to me. They made a lot more sense, and it became clearer on how to win at this game as well. So what I'm going to do today is give you 5 key concepts of game design and how they apply to test automation. So the first concept is the goal. as a designer, before you do anything else, you determine what's the goal of the game, because everything else is going to follow based on that goal, right? Is the goal of the game to be the #1 ranked player, like on Diva Chicks or City Bingo? Is the goal to collect all of the pieces for a collection like Pokemon? Maybe the goal is to be the first player to get rid of all of your cards, like in Uno, right? Imagine playing a game where you didn't know the rules. I mean, you didn't know the goal of the game. You weren't sure of what the objective was, right? You're probably going to lose that game. You're aimlessly walking around, making plays, and you're not sure of what you're doing and if they're even going to contribute to you winning at this game. But yet, this is what we do a lot in test automation, right? Someone has the great idea that we should start a new automation initiative, and the very first thing that we do is run and create a proof of concept. Why? Why are we doing this? Do we know the goal? And I've done this myself, and I failed when I've done this. And it most of the times had nothing to do with anything technical about the project. It was because the project didn't meet the expectations of the team. Of course they didn't. We didn't know what the expectations were, right? So it's really important that before you jump into this automation game, you first define what the goal of the game is. Make sure that you understand it, because like I said, everything else follows based on that goal. In a game, once you know the goal, you start determining, okay, which player am I going to be, right? Which weapons am I going to get for this player? How am I going to strategize? What plays am I going to make? Same with automation. You know the goal is much simpler to determine which players need to be in this game. Which weapons or tools do we equip these players with? And how do we strategize to win? Now, the goal is really important, so I'm going to break this down a little further and give you 3 characteristics of a goal. The goal should be quantifiable. If you're playing a game where the goal is to find all of the pieces of a collection, then when you find all of the pieces of the collection, you better be declared the winner, right? There's no gray area there. In automation, our leaders, sometimes they aren't sure if they should have a goal there, and then sometimes when they do, they try to make it quantifiable, but it's not quite right. For example, let's say that the goal is to automate 85% of the regression backlog. Sounds reasonable. Until you start playing the game. And you realize at some point, I'm not going to win this game. Why? You're not going to win the game because there's a couple of things that's going on with this type of metric. Typically, we're automating against a live application where development is still ongoing, right? And so as you're automating, you're making progress. Let's say you've made 5-10% of the goal. But they keep developing features and keep dumping tests back into this regression backlog. So the total number is increasing, which means that your progress is decreasing. So you show your metrics and say, we're 10% done this week. Next week, you're 8% done. That's very confusing to leaders. It looks like you are losing at this game, right? Another thing is that the 85%, this is arbitrary. The numbers we pull out, someone made that up, pulled that out of the hat, said, let's automate 85%. What do you do as a player if your goal is to automate 85% of this regression backlog? You just attack it, right? You're automating any and everything. You think you're giving thought to the value of the test case or the risk or anything? No, it's like, give me a test, I'm automating it, right? And so now you have this suite of all of these worthless, low-value tests that are automated. And you find yourself now constantly having to triage these tests, constantly having to maintain these tests, and you're running out of time. You don't have time to automate the new stuff anymore. So what? That scale is sliding even more to the left now. When you report these numbers up, game over. You failed at this. You failed at this. And it really wasn't even your fault. The goal that was wrong, right? And heaven forbid if you then have to answer to this. People say, what's going on? Why are these numbers? Oh, the tool is flaky. We love to say that, right? Tip for you, little Easter egg. It's not the tool. Your goal is flaky. All right? Also, the goal needs to be obtainable. So let's say by some miracle, you actually hit that 85%. It's game over? Did you win? Right? So automation is much like what we call infinite games. And in infinite games, these are games that are ongoing. They don't end. Diva Chicks is an infinite game. If someone becomes the #1 ranked player, the game isn't over. We're still playing. Other people want to become ranked #1, and so the person who is #1 has to keep playing in order to keep this spot, right? So in infinite games, as a designer, it's really important to make sure that we're incorporating smaller victories because you may not ever reach the end goal. This is infinite, right? And so in Diva Chicks, I would incorporate things like weekly battle ladders or little contests or tasks or jobs for them to complete. And then they get that little milestone and they feel good about themselves like they're winning. And all of this contributes to their overall goal. So in automation, we have to do this same thing, right? We have to incorporate these little milestones. We have to celebrate these victories. So you've automated all of the important tests for a specific feature. Let's celebrate that. You've gone from clicking the button on your machine and reporting the results to everybody tomorrow to now integrating this with continuous integration. Let's celebrate. Let's celebrate that. Your tests no longer take hours to run, but now you've reduced this down to minutes because now you're running in parallel. Let's celebrate. So leaders, make sure that you take the time to acknowledge and celebrate your players as they hit these milestones. Now let's face it, a goal is not a goal if it's not challenging, right? Fortunately, test automation has challenges just built in already. These things are there. And no matter how many times you play this automation game, the challenges don't go away. In fact, you see them over and over again, just like you would in any game. You play Super Mario's, you see those same monsters jumping out in the same scenes, right? The key here is to recognize the challenges that you see, pay attention to them, make note, and keep in mind how you defeat them, because you're going to see them again the very next time you play this game. I've been doing this for a long time. I see it every time. But at some point, you become better at this. You stop falling into the same traps, right? You are now able to use a little magic and convince people to do things that you need them to do. You are now able to look at a scene and you can tell what's coming. You can predict this. Oh, we have a challenge coming. I know this scene. And you can inform everyone else around you, listen, we're nowhere near ready to take on this challenge, but let's equip ourselves so that we can do so. All right, so the next key aspect, game design, is the rules. The rules follow after we've determined what the goal of the game is going to be. And the rules are defined in such a way that it forces players to become creative to be able to solve the challenges that we throw at them as a game designer. There are 3 types of rules. There's the outside of the box rules. These are the rules that literally come outside of the box, right? These are the black and white rules. These are rules that tell you what you can do, what you can't do. In automation, there's no rules that came with this game. But fortunately, we have a lot of thought leaders, people who have been playing this game for years, who were kind enough to define these rules for us, right? These are the best practices and things that you hear about. And as an automation community, we've pretty much adopted these as our outside-of-the-box rules. And then there's the inside of the box rules. The inside of the box rules, these are the unwritten rules. These are the rules that look at like the internal mechanisms of the game. Have you ever been playing cards with people? Let's say it's 4 of you, right? And somewhere in the midst of that game, one of the players looks you dead in the eye and says, "Go ahead and play that ace you're holding." And you're wondering, how do they know I have the ace, right? These are the inside of the box rules. They're able to count the cards, they're able to watch the plays, and then determine who has what left in their hand. My Uncle Stephen is here today, and Uncle Stephen is a master of the inside of the box rules of bridge. So he plays bridge a couple of times a week, right? Soon as the game begins, he pretty much knows what everybody has. So if you see Uncle Stephen in the hallway, don't let him con you into a game of bridge, all right? Now, the inside of the box rules in the game of automation, these are my favorite. These are the best practice in the articles that are published that look at where you are contextually within the game. Right? So it's not just assuming that everyone is playing in this ideal space, but it says, look, you probably got yourself in a jam. Here's how you can get out of it. I love those. A great example, probably the best example of inside the rules in the game of automation is Test Automation Patterns Wiki. And this is developed by Dorothy Graham and Soretta Gamble. And on this wiki, you literally can go there, no matter what problem you have in automation, whether it be technical, whether it be process-related, and you can find where you are, and it has all of these possibilities on how to get yourself out. So it's showing the plays that you can make. These ladies have written a book about this. It will be out by the end of the year. I had the pleasure of reading the book. And it is amazing, so definitely be on the lookout for it. This will be your automation Bible. Then there's the house rules. People, I love the house rules. Yeah, these are the rules that you make up with your team members, right? Are we playing like this or are we playing like that? We keeping the jokers in or what? All right? You start making these up. Now, in the automation game, we're not really accepting of the house rules. People judge you. They think that you're clueless if you tell them you're playing by the house rules. I don't like this. Can we stop doing this? Let's stop judging people and assuming that everyone is playing with all of the game pieces and that they can do everything by these outside-the-box rules that technically we made up ourselves. Can we allow people to implement some cultural variances to their game to get ahead? People out here doing the best that they can. There's an example. And y'all probably going to drag me for this, whatever. I call it the BDD purists and the Three Amigos. So the BDD purists, behavior-driven development, they are constantly harping on people for doing BDD wrong. I can't go 2 months on my Twitter timeline without seeing somebody being dragged for doing BDD wrong. So what they say is how you should do BDD. It should be a collaborative experience with the three amigos. It should be your tester. It should be your developer. It should be your business person. They should meet together. They should come up with these scenarios in harmony. And then you get this beautiful side effect because now these scenarios, which are written in whatever your native tongue, so English, let's say, for example, you can now write automation right against this scenario. And then the test will run. Now, I've done a lot of consulting with teams, some of which are skipping that whole process of collaboration and communication. And granted, this is the core of BDD. But they're not doing this because they're lazy or they don't want to. Sometimes they have no choice. I used to regurgitate this stuff to them as well. And I say, well, you know, you're not doing BDD. They said, we know. They weren't clueless. They were aware of this. And I said, well, why aren't you? They said, well, we wanted to play with the developers. They told us they don't want another meeting on their calendar. We wanted to play with the business folks. They told us, I write the scenarios. I do just fine. Everybody understands them. Why do we all have to get together? So people didn't want to play. But they wanted those executable scenarios. This was valuable to them because they could have their testers who don't have the programming skills write those scenarios, and then have their automation people execute them. Sure, that's not ideal, but they're doing the best that they can. And I've waited for the bottom to drop out. Hasn't. They're doing fine with their house rules. So let's stop beating up on folks, all right? All right, let me get off my soapbox. The third aspect of game design is the game flow. So after we've determined the rules, after we've determined the goal, we then look at how the game is going to flow. This is what motivates people to continue playing. So as players advance in the game, as a game designer, you want to make sure that the game continues to get harder for them, right? You want to make sure that it's challenging. Now, in the automation game, our game gets harder, right? And we're faced with challenges every step of the way. From getting management buy-in to figuring out who's gonna play this game, who's gonna collaborate with us, which tools are we gonna use, how are we gonna build our framework, which tests are we gonna automate, how do we get them running continuously, how do we maintain them? Always a new challenge. But isn't that the very thing that we love about games? If you look at it from that mindset, you'll start to embrace these challenges. You'll say, okay, here's my challenge. I'm going to beat this challenge. I'm going to celebrate. And then I'm going to be faced with a new challenge tomorrow. Yay! You look at it like this, you just start attacking it. Okay? So just embrace your challenges. We also, as game designers, need to understand that every player's game is going to be different. So let's say we're playing a card game. Someone deals the cards. Let's say gin rummy. I like rummy. And everyone looks at their cards. It's obvious we're not all going to have the same cards. We're going to have a different hand, right? This is common sense. But sometimes we find ourselves comparing our automation game with everyone else's. We say, why is that company so successful? And we start getting discouraged. You're going to hear experts speak at this conference. You're going to speak with delegates who are brilliant in the audience, and everyone is going to seem to have their game figured out. Some of these folks are bluffing. Right? So make sure that you realize the hand that you've been given. Even if they do have it figured out, they have maybe a different roster of players than you have at your place. They have resources that you all don't have, to tools and things like this. So listen to the strategies, get what you can, but don't beat yourself up and don't become discouraged, okay? It's also important as a game designer that we recognize challenge versus skill. If we get this wrong as a designer, the game is going to bomb. Here's why. Let's say you have a player that has little skill in the game. If you give them a challenge that's very difficult, then they are going to be in that top area of fear and anxiety. It's hard to play when you're in that area. So usually people will quit or fail. Likewise, if you have a player that's highly skilled, but then you give them low challenges, it's too easy. They become bored. They also quit the game. So it's really important as a designer to make sure that we're in this sweet spot where the player is constantly challenged, but they're also equipped with what they need to be successful. We get this wrong in the automation game all the time. One of the reasons why is because we choose our weapons or our tools before we look at the players that's going to use them. You can't take a group of testers who do not have programming skill, little skill in programming, little skill in automation, and task them with a brand new software development project that they have to do on their own, which is what automation is. You give them 1 or 2 days of training, right? And you say, go forth. We wouldn't do this with a development team. Would you trust a development team who has little skill in programming to build your application? Of course not. Think of this the same way. Also, you saw a cool code list tool, right? They had check marks on all the buzzwords, AI, everything. You bought it, and then you say, who do we get to do our automation? Well, our developers, of course. Your developers are highly skilled in programming. They love to do it. They don't want to use the code list tool. They will become bored. They won't, no matter how good the tool is, they're not going to use it. So it's really important to think about who are your players, who's going to play this automation game, and then choose their weapons accordingly. And that's not to say that everyone has to be a master. I'm not saying that at all. There's, in fact, 3 levels that we look at in game design. We have our beginners. Your beginners are folks who they're learning the rules of the game. Then you have the intermediate. These are folks that they know the rules. Now they're starting to learn a little strategy. And then you have your master level. They know the rules, they know the strategy. Now they're able to put them into play in creative ways to overcome the challenges that they're faced with. Now we have this really unreasonable demand in the automation game where we are requiring people to be masters out of the gate. You look at the job recs. Everybody wants expert in Selenium. There's nothing wrong with being an expert in Selenium. But can I tell you that that doesn't make you a master of the automation game? Right? So you went forth and all you learned about was how to use this tool. You bypassed the stage where you were learning the rules of the game. You bypassed the stage where you were learning the strategy. And so you get hired for this job. You're a master. And you still lose. Again, Selenium must suck, right? No. You're a master of Selenium, honey. You're not a master of the game. So leaders, stop demanding this of people by default. Allow people to play this game at a pace where they can really learn the rules. They can really learn the strategy. Then you have a master. Then you're going to get what you're looking for. right? You say, well, Angie, I need a master now. We have some serious problems. That's fine. Get a master. And they can help train your folks that are at the beginner and the intermediate level and allow them to play at a pace that's fair to them, but also beneficial to your company. The fourth aspect, game design, is feedback. So players are always looking for feedback, whether they know it or not, in their game. They're looking for cues to let them know if they're on the right track or not. In Diva Chicks, when someone puts together a new outfit, they don't just jump out there. They enter a couple of battles, and they get the feedback, the results from those battles, and they can make a decision. Did they like it? Or do I need to change my shoes, right? And based on that feedback, they then know if they keep going like this or if they need to make some adjustments. We also have feedback and cues in the automation game. We have to listen to them, and we also have to analyze them. A lot of times we receive the feedback, but then we consider it a loss, game over. Sometimes all you have to do is adjust, change your shoes, right? So let's look at a couple of cues in the automation game. Your developers don't want to help. So when you started out, you said that the testers were going to drive this, and then the developers were going to contribute, and you had this perfect game in your mind. But these folks aren't playing. Doesn't mean the game is over. Take the feedback, analyze it, see what's wrong. Perhaps they don't think that the automation strategy aligns with their goals. Maybe that's a conversation that you all can explore. Maybe the challenge doesn't match the skill level, right? So you have them again with these tools that they don't want to use or some language that they're not comfortable with. Do you have enough time built into the schedule for them to actually contribute to this? Do you have a culture where everyone values quality and thinks that it's everyone's responsibility? Or is that the tester's job? So these are things that you can adjust before you just quit the game. Another cue. The bills are failing, the tests are flaky. Let's look at why the bills are failing, right? So your developers, they'll complain about this, and what do? Okay, I'll disable the test. You failed, you've lost, right? No, look at this, let's look at this. Maybe it's not your test that's flaky. Maybe it's the application. Is it testable? Has testability been built into this app? Maybe that's something to explore. Maybe it's the infrastructure. Maybe these flaky tests are actually telling you something's up with your infrastructure, right? So before you call yourself out, explore. The tests are taking too long to run. We're trying to do continuous integration here, right? Maybe there's some things that you can do. Get these tests running in parallel, perhaps. Or maybe stop automating all those low-value tests. Or maybe you can explore ways to not only automate at the UI layer, but maybe you can trickle this down some. Push some of these tests down to your unit test layer or your API business layer. So you have options here. You have options. The final aspect of game design is the social aspect. Now, while people enjoy playing games, they also really enjoy interacting with other people, believe it or not. And it's really important as a game designer that we put these constructs in play so that people can form communities. They love this. They love to come to the game. They love to talk with other people about the rules and what they've learned, share what they learned. They love to complain about the game. They love to brag on their wins. So you want to have this community within the game. And in the automation game, we certainly have a community of wonderful people. If you didn't know about this or you don't feel included, I have good news for you. You're here today, right? And so you have 650 to 700 people that you can meet and mingle with and network. Be sure to get their information. Become a part of this community. But let me forewarn you, everybody is in this thing for different reasons. There's different characters in any community, and we certainly see them in automation. I remember in my game design course, I learned about Richard Bartle's taxonomy of player types. And this guy analyzed players of games and categorized them into 4 categories. And I certainly see this in the game of automation. So I'm going to go through these 4, see if you can pick which type you are. All right? First one is the killer. The killer acts on players. They love to show off. They love to tell everyone else how they're doing everything wrong and how they have the game figured out. You know anybody like this in automation? Maybe it's you. Killers, we love you. You give us feedback. You tell us about best practices. This is all extremely valuable. But might I make a suggestion? Maybe you could be a little kinder with your feedback. Maybe instead of telling us that we're just doing it wrong, you tell us why it's wrong so that we can learn from that. Even better is if you tell us how to do it right. Show us, right? Don't just say, stop automating everything at the UI layer, end of, right? Tell us why that's not a good idea. Show us how we might be able to do it better. We have the achiever. The achiever acts on the world, the game world itself. The achiever is not really worrying about the other players in the game. They're focused on their game. They're focused on beating these challenges and winning and success. These are wonderful people to hire into your companies. Everybody wants to work with the achiever type. Definitely love these people in automation, except they don't really know a whole lot of you because you're not talking with other players. So my homework for the achievers is to not be so isolated. All of that strategy that you know about, those winning techniques, tell us about it too. Share it with the broader community, not just your company or your team. We love to hear it. Next player type is the socializer. The socializers, they start off playing the game, they learn about the game, they meet friends, and it gets to a point where they're really only logging into the game to go hang out with their game friends. They barely even play the game anymore, right? Socializers in automation, these are the folks that are on stage, they're writing, they're sharing all of this wealth of information, they're telling their stories. We love that. That's amazing. But be careful, my socializers. You don't want to become so far removed from the game that you no longer know what's happening. The game has evolved. We're not doing that anymore. And you're steadily preaching about it, right? We've moved on. We're doing Agile and DevOps and things like this now, right? And then finally, there's the explorer type. The explorer interacts with the game world. They're all about finding the game's hidden secrets, the jewels, the Easter eggs. In test automation, these are the people that know about all the tools, right? They've learned how to combine different tools to be able to solve challenges and things like this. This is great, very impressive. Except explorers, sometimes in automation, they are always chasing the next tool. To the point they throw stuff away all the time. Oh, no. Everything we've written in this is garbage. We have to use this brand new tool. So they're not making progress. They're not winning at this game. All right? So maybe you see yourself in one of these categories. Most people, they see themselves dominant in one of these and maybe some characteristics of others, and those are the best types. No matter who you are, no matter which one of these cards you are, we love you, right? We're all a family, all trying to win this game together. So, I've given you the game. As you go throughout the conference for the next 2 days, you're going to hear amazing talks from amazing speakers. They're going to tell you all about the rules of automations, all about the strategies that they're using. As you do this, maybe even right now or on the break, I want you to think about what's your goal in your automation game. Do you know what it is? As you listen to the talks over the conference, maybe you might even want to redefine it in some way. Also, be careful as you're listening to the strategy and the rules that you don't become intimidated by this. You're going to get a wealth of information. Remember, we're not all playing with the same hand. Take what you can, use what you can. Things you can't use, stick it in your back pocket. You're going to play this game again. All right? As you go back to your workplace, I want you to be on the lookout for the feedback cues. Don't be so quick to call yourself out in this game. Look at those cues. Maybe there's just a little tweak, little adjustment that you need to explore. And finally, get involved with the automation community. You're going to meet wonderful people here. Be sure to get their information, keep in contact. I would also love if you shared back with the community. Perhaps get on this stage next year. All right? So, on that note, let's play. Thank you.